Genesis chapter number 27. If you have your Bible, if you would turn there with me, please. Genesis 27. And we will start at verse number 38. And this is the end of the beginning of the story of two brothers named Jacob and Esau. Right? This is the end of the first half of their story that we see. And Esau was the older brother. Jacob was the younger brother, right? Jacob literally meant trickster, okay? And he lived up to his name. And so we see that Esau has given his birthright away to Jacob. Now, in this culture, in this context, the birthright is the thing, right? That is what everybody wants, and it goes to the firstborn son. And Esau had that. It was his to be given. But he gave it away to his younger brother, Jacob, for a bowl of stew. Probably one of the worst trades in the history of trading. Right? Like, think of the worst sports trade you can think of, and it is entirely way worse than that. Way worse than that. It's worse than when they let Kobe go to the Lakers. It's good for me. I'm a Lakers fan. But it was like the worst trade in history. And most of the time when we talk about Jacob and Esau, everybody wants to talk about how unwise Esau was. Like, how could you give your birthright away? Like, are you foolish? Are you crazy? And while I'd be the first to admit, like, yes, it was not the smartest thing Esau ever did, giving his birthright away, not the wisest thing he ever chose to do. But even though I've preached about it, giving away your best thing that God has for you for something as simple as a bowl of stew. That's what we like to do. That's like us pastors. That's what we like to say. That's the transition point. It's like he gave away the stew, or he gave away the birthright for stew, and we give away the greatest thing God ever gave us for something simple. That's the context, right? That us pastors like to use. But even though I've preached that before, I kind of feel bad for Esau, right? Because he was straight up betrayed. He was bamboozled. He was blindsided. He had absolutely no idea that his brother was going to do to him what he did. If he would have known, then he would have never done it. And all that Esau did, he didn't do anything wrong. All he did was he was just so tired from hunting all day, providing for his family, that he wanted some food. And his brother was like, okay, I'll give you some food if you give me the birthright. Give me the birthright. Yeah, I want the stew. Give me the birthright. Yeah, okay, here's the stew, right? And it's just like this underhanded exchange. And Esau was betrayed by his brother. I kind of feel bad for him. That he was blindsided by his brother. Can you imagine the betrayal that he had to feel? That he had to experience in his life? But where we're going to read today in verse 38 is after that has happened, Esau goes to his father Isaac and he tries to correct everything. He tries to fix it. And it says in verse number 38, Esau pleaded, but do you have only one blessing? Do you have only one? Esau was praying for that Steve Jobs anointing. Right, back when Steve Jobs was alive and he used to do the Apple presentations, he would always get to the end and then he'd say, but wait, there's more. And he'd have one final thing. That's what Esau's hoping for. That's what he's praying for. He's like, hey, Dad, you got one of those things left, that one birthright you had. Did you happen to multiply it into two? Like, in the off chance that this happened, did you tuck one away that we didn't know about? Oh, my father, bless me too. Then Esau broke down and wept. Finally, his father Isaac said to him, and I gotta think that when Isaac started to talk, that Esau had a glimmer of hope. I gotta think that Esau, deep down, when he saw his dad start to talk, just knew that he was going to say, as a matter of fact, I do. Got one extra with your name on it. Because I knew that you'd get hungry one day and that you'd give your birthright away to your brother Jacob, and I knew he was a trickster. I got one left. I have to think that he thought that there was going to be some grace there, that there was going to be some extra there, some type of backup plan. But Isaac said to him, you will live away from the richness of the earth. Uh-oh. not going well. And away from the dew of heaven above. Still not good. You will live by your sword and you will serve your brother. Now, I'm an only child, right? So if he would have said that to me, it'd mean I was going to serve myself. I'm cool with that. But like those of you who may be the older child, imagine your father telling you, by the way, you're going to serve your sibling. You're going to have to take care of them. You're going to have to do for them what they ask you to do. You're going to be the one. You thought it was going to be you. You thought you were getting the inheritance. Joke's on you, because it's going to them, and they're going to control you with it. He says, you will live by the sword. You will serve your brother. It's the opposite of what he wanted to hear. But when you decide to break free, you will serve your brother, but when you decide to break free, I wonder if anybody showed up today that's willing to make a decision. I wonder if anybody showed up that's been facing some adversity, been facing some insecurity, been facing some disappointment, been facing some bitterness, some bondage, who came today saying, you know what, I am ready to make a decision to break free from this thing, to move past this thing, to get beyond this thing. He said, when you decide to break free, when you decide to break free from the bad decision that you still allow to dwell over you, when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. Esau said, Dad, do you have one more blessing? Do you have one more blessing? Is there anything left for me? Do you have one more? And I have to think that this did not set well with Esau's victim mentality, right? Esau is the victim. He's been betrayed. He's done nothing wrong. All he did was just work so hard for his family, trying to provide, that he got tired. And in a moment of weakness, he made a wrong decision. And I believe that all of us here today can acknowledge that we've had a time in our life where we had a moment of weakness, where we made a decision that we would not have made if we would have been strong, if we wouldn't have been tired, if we wouldn't have been worn down. And Esau, he's done nothing wrong, but yet he's lost it to his brother. And I wonder, have you ever felt that way before? Like, God, when is it gonna be my turn? Like, God, I've been waiting. I've been praying. Like, when is it gonna be my turn? When am I going to see the thing that I know you promised in my life? When am I going to see you do what I know that you said you would do? When is it gonna be my turn? I didn't even do anything wrong. I go to church more than they do. I pray more than they do. I read my Bible more than they do. I do all these things. They ain't even all that. God, I don't even know if they like you. And you're doing it for them? God, when is it gonna be my turn? When will I catch a break? It's the Sunday after Easter, so we're all still on that, like we're really high on the holy list right now, so we're not gonna acknowledge that we've been there. Where it's like, God, I see what you're doing for everybody else, and they don't even deserve it as if we do. When will I catch a break? And Isaac looked at him and he said, when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. See, moments of disappointment like this often lead us to kind of feel like we're gonna be stuck in the same position that we're in. That because we didn't get in on that blessing, that we're not going to see anything good. That because we didn't experience that thing, that we're not gonna see anything. As if we have tried and failed, as if we have been overlooked, as if we have been forgotten, as if it is never going to happen in our lives. And these feelings tend to cause us to think that we're victims. That the reason that we're going to stay stuck where we are is because nobody else will let us get out of this place. Nobody else will let us get out of this position. That the reason we're stuck is because of somebody else. Growing up, my parents used to call it the blame game. Whenever I would do something or somebody else would do something, but then I wanted to blame everything on them, and my parents would be like, don't play the blame game. You had a role in this too. We get into this frame of mind where we feel as if we are stuck where we are because of everybody else, as if we're not progressing because others will not allow us to. And then we make up the decision, you know what, fine, forget it, I'm just gonna stay here. I'm just gonna stay here. It is what it is. I guess I'm just destined to stay right here. This is as good as it's gonna be. And we give up. And while in these moments, patience is important, complacence is dangerous. It is important to be patient. It is dangerous to become complacent. And what God is looking for us to do is to get a little restless. And what I mean by that is get to a place where we say, you know what? I know this is not the end for me. I know this is not the final place. I know this is not the way that it finishes for me. I know this is not the ending for me. I've got to figure out what it is that God is actually going to do. I'm getting too restless here. I'm not just staying stuck here. I'm not just staying here for forever. This is not over for me. I'm getting a little restless. So this morning I want to talk to you on that subject. Get a little restless. Get a little restless. Let's pray together. God, I thank you for today. Thank you that we have the opportunity to gather together today. Thank you for those who gathered in person, Lord, those who gather with us online. I pray that you would help us to hear from you. Help us to have hearts to receive what you have to say. Lord, I pray that you would remove all preconceived ideas and preconceived notions that we may have walked in here with, and that we would listen to you. Speak to us. Help us not to see or hear from me, but to see and hear from you. And I thank you for it in Jesus' name. Everybody said? Amen. Now, how many of you, by show of hands, how many of you have some strange pet peeves when it comes to food? Right? Show of hands, like some weird things, like you like some things, but you don't like some things. Like for instance, maybe you like bread, but you don't like the crust, right? Or the end pieces, right? On a loaf of bread, you got the two end pieces. Who in here eats the end pieces? Y'all need prayer, my God. We don't eat the end pieces in my house. The men do not. I don't, Judah doesn't, Elijah doesn't. We leave that to my wife. She's less bougie than we are. So she's fine eating the end pieces. I can't do it. I can eat crust. I don't love crust. I certainly don't want to just eat crust, right? The end pieces. So that's kind of there. Then you got things like maybe lettuce. Maybe you like lettuce, but you don't like the hard part of lettuce. So you spend like 15 minutes of your 30-minute lunch break cutting off the hard part of the romaine lettuce and throwing it away. So then you only got 15 minutes to eat. Or maybe it's like you like certain parts of asparagus or broccoli or whatever it may be, but you don't like the stem. You just like the head part of it, so you got to like cut it off and only eat that part and throw away the other part. As you might imagine, these all apply to me, okay? I am what you might call a picky eater, and that's just how I roll. But as I've become a dad, I've gotten a little better at it. See, I didn't have to do it when I got married because Nicole will eat she'll eat that stuff. Like, she's just so good about it. She's like, well, I'm like on our way to church this morning, she has these little protein, she was eating a protein cookie. And she was like, you know, I thought that this was just a double pack of the protein bars that I normally get because the box was bigger. And she was like, I was gonna get 2 boxes of my normal protein bars, but I saw this big box, thought it was double the amount for cheaper price. And I was like, that's my girl. Right? Like, you got it. But it turns out it was protein cookies. And I was like, well, you know, it's okay. Just don't worry about it because and she was like, they're nasty. I said, just don't eat it. She said, no, I bought it and I'm going to eat it. Like that. She's good like that. For me, I'd be like I'd be like, who wants a cookie? You know, Judah and Elijah, when they do something good, I'd be like, here you go, bud. Y'all got this cookie. But she'll eat it, whatever. But when I became a dad, I had to start kind of, you know, transitioning into that because our boys, they always want what's on my plate. They want the good stuff. They don't want to have to necessarily eat like the parts that I give to them. So, like, they don't want the stem of broccoli. They want the broccoli head. I'm like, well, you know, you eat what you get. They're like, no, we want that. So as a dad, I've kind of gotten to where I will let them eat, you know, some of the things that I like, you know, I'm just saying. And then there's other times that they want my food. Like they eat their food, then they want my food, right? We've entered that phase. I don't like it. But we've entered that phase where they eat their food, then they want my food. So now I've become one of those eaters that just like tries to like eat as fast as you can. So I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, it's just gone. So they want the food on my plate. And normally I will share with them. I will give to them. They're bigger growing boys. I'm sitting here, like I need to stay where I'm at, go down, whatever it may be. So I'll share with them most of the time. But then there's times when I really need the food because my mood is being affected. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes if I'm really hungry, my mood can be affected. And I'm not alone in this. You can judge me, you can frown at me, whatever. There is an entire series of commercials about this. Grab a Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry. Like they know. And I can get like that sometimes. But for the most part, I do okay. And I like share my food and I keep a good attitude. But I remember the first time that Judah was old enough to eat regular food, and Nicole, my wife, made brownies. And she made these brownies. How many of y'all eat the edges of the brownies? Like you're fine with the edge pieces? I'm serious, man. We are having an altar call at the end of this service. Y'all the same bread people, aren't you? I'm pretty sure. Then there's those how many of you like, if it ain't the center, it's a center, right? Like the centerpiece is all that you want. How many were my centerpieces, the middle piece? Yeah, that's the one. That's the only good part because a brownie is supposed to melt in your mouth. It's supposed to melt and it cannot melt in your mouth when it's got like this hard edge, crunchy piece. So it's only the centerpieces. And so Nicole had made brownies. I had left the room for 1 minute. And when I came back, the middle piece was gone. Like just out the center, cut out, gone. And so I'm thinking, she's so good to me. Like she cut out the centerpiece, she put it on a plate for me, until she said, hey babe, which piece do you want? I'm like, the one you cut out? And she said, audacity. She looked at me, stone cold, and she said, yeah, but Judah wanted that piece. You've known me for 6 years, you've known him for 4. Right? Like, Judah wanted that piece. And I wasn't mad. I was like hurt. You know what I mean? Like I was hurt. And she could tell that I was hurt by looking at me because I guess like, my face had just kind of sunk down. And really what I did was like, I'm actually good. I don't need a brownie. That's kind of like God's working on me, right? He's working on all of us. So just so you know, if I ever ask for something and then it's gone and I'm like, well, I'm good, that means that I'm disappointed. So I was like, actually, I'm good. I don't really need a brownie, And she could tell I was disappointed and hurt, so she said, babe, it's fine. It's no big deal. She said, I can cut the edge off of this piece, and it's just like a middle piece. And what she wanted me to realize, yes, my wife is so good to me, because some of y'all like, well, I'd have been like, you get what you get. But we were still early in marriage, so she was like, yeah, I'm going to cut off this piece, the edge piece. She was like, it's still like a middle piece. What she wanted me to realize and understand is that just because Judah got the middle piece with no edge didn't mean that I couldn't get a piece with no edge. Just because it happened for Judah didn't mean it could not happen for me. And see, I do this with brownies, but we all do this with various things in our lives. We get in a mindset where something good happens for somebody else, and because it happened for them, we automatically think it cannot happen for us. And this is about to set you free. First thing I want you to write down, if you're taking notes, and I hope you're taking notes because I talk way too fast for you to remember everything I said. If you're taking notes this morning, the first thing I want you to see is another's breakthrough is not your letdown. Another's breakthrough is not your letdown. Just because somebody else experienced a breakthrough in their life, it does not mean that you've been let down. Just because God did something good for somebody else, it does not mean he can't do something good for you. Just because God blessed somebody else, it does not mean that God cannot bless you too. Just because somebody else saw a breakthrough, it does not mean that you've been let down. But this is how Esau felt. In verse number 38, it says he pleaded, but do you have only one blessing? Oh, my father, bless me too. Then Esau broke down and wept. He wept. And the reason that he wept is because in his mind, the fact that his brother got blessed it meant that he could not be. Because something had happened for his brother, it meant that nothing good could happen for him. And we judge him for this, but yet we do the same thing. This is why you struggle to celebrate when your friend tells you good news all the time. This is why you tell people, I'm happy for you, but then under your breath, you're like, it should have been me. This is why you go around high-fiving people when they tell you something good, but deep down, you can't really celebrate them because all you can imagine is that because it happened for them, it's not going to happen for you. Since they experienced it in their lives, it's not going to happen for me. It's like, oh, congratulations. She ain't all that. God, what are you doing? Right? Trusting the wrong people. You should have trusted me. I don't know why you're trusting her. She don't really know how to handle everything that you're trying to bless and everything that you're trying to do. But just because she got a breakthrough, it does not mean that you've been let down. Just because something good happened in their life, it doesn't mean that you've been let down. Stop thinking that just because God did something for someone else, that it means he cannot do it for you. Just because God blessed someone else, it means that he can't bless you. And you know what you're saying whenever you say that, by the way? Without even realizing it, whenever you view someone else's blessing as your curse, what you are saying is that God is limited. When God does something for somebody else and you automatically assume he can't do anything in your life, you are saying that God is limited. You are saying that the resource is greater than the source. But God is the source of all resources, which means if he did something for them, he can still do it for you. He is not limited to your number. He is not limited to your figure. If God did it for them, he can do it for you because he is the source. He's the source. Just because he did it for somebody else doesn't mean that he can't do it for you too. And I know that it is difficult to truly believe this, especially when you're told that there's only one of something. Because if you see one of something that is gone now, then it's like, can't happen for me. Wasn't that Esau's problem here? Esau was told there was one blessing. His father had one thing that he could give, and he gave it to Jacob. So it is no wonder that Esau was having trouble thinking that it could get any better. It's no wonder that Esau was thinking that it could not happen for him, that it could not happen in his life. But what is limited with man is unlimited with God. What we limit, God says, I'm unlimited. I'm not limited by what you see. I'm not limited by what you feel. I'm not limited by what it looks like. I'm not limited by what they told you. I am unlimited. He says he is unlimited. And I know that it may be disappointing when the one promotion that your job had goes to a coworker. But God says there's more opportunities for increase where that came from. I know that it can be upsetting sometimes when you see the man of your dreams end up with somebody who doesn't deserve him. Now, he was mine. Would you talk to him? No. But I just know that God told me, well, if God didn't tell him, I know it's difficult, right? It's upsetting when the man of your dreams gets taken by somebody else. But God says, hey, there's more where that came from. Got a world full of men. Just saying. There's more where that came from. I know that it can be upsetting and disappointing when your friend tells you that they're pregnant after only a few months and you've been trying for years. And it hasn't happened. And now it's beginning to feel as if it's impossible. But God is not limited by our timelines, and he is not limited by our ultimatums. And what is limited in our minds is unlimited with God. What seems impossible to us is possible with God. And just because it's happening for somebody else does not mean that God cannot do it for you. Just because God showed up in their life, it doesn't mean that God can't do it for you. It doesn't mean that he can't show up. Stop putting your trust in the resource and put it back in the source. God, I'm not trusting in the resource. I'm trusting in the source. I'm not trusting in what I can do or what happened to them, but God, I'm trusting in what you can do for me. Just because they've experienced a breakthrough in their life does not mean that you are destined for a letdown. And many of us, we're walking around and we're bitter and we're upset and we don't even know why we're bitter and upset. And the reason we're bitter and upset is because we think that everything good is happening for everyone else and we're still in the same place, facing the same problem. Like, God, I know I made the wrong decision that time, but please don't punish me the rest of my life. May I tell you, God is not one to punish you the rest of your life. When you pray and ask forgiveness, his grace is sufficient. It covers it. He says you're good to go. He is not punishing you, but his timeline is different. His ways are different. What he does is different. Don't put your faith in the resource, put it in the source. Tell somebody, trust the source. Trust the source. Esau said, my only chance to be blessed is gone. The only chance. The one blessing that my father had is gone. How will it ever get better than this? And in verse number 40, his father says to him, he says, you will live by the sword. You will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. God is telling somebody today, write this down, others don't control your decision. Others do not control. If you don't hear anything else I say today, if you tune me out the rest of the day, I want you to catch this. Others don't control your decision. Only you can decide. Nobody else does it for you. I can't do it for you. The influencer you follow on social media can't do it for you. God can't even do it for you. Only you can decide. Only you can make the decision. You know what? I am tired of being in the same situation. I am tired of facing the same problem. I am tired of facing the same frustration, the same bitterness, the same disappointment. I am ready to move on from this thing. I am restless in this place, and I am ready to move on. I am done complaining. I am done complaining and griping and crying about it. I'm done fussing about it. I'm done talking about what could have been or what should have been, and I'm making a decision that today I'm going to choose that it's ending. I'm going to choose that today I'm not staying stuck in my bitterness. I'm not staying stuck in my jealousy. I'm not staying stuck in my unforgiveness. I'm not staying stuck in the disappointment. I'm not staying stuck in my dread of what I'm going through. I'm making a decision. Others can't make it for you. Others can't choose it. And hear me very carefully. No decision is a decision. When you make no decision, you have made a decision. When you have made no decision to move past that thing, you've made a decision to stay stuck. Making no decision is a decision. It's a decision to stay stuck. It's a decision to stay frustrated. It's a decision not to see the fullness of what God has for your life. It's a decision not to experience everything that God knows that you need. It is a decision to be there. And many of us are still stuck in the same place that we don't want to be with the same things that we don't want in our lives because we never made a decision to move past it. We never made the decision to go past it. You have to make the decision. It is not your friend's fault. It is not your spouse's fault. It is not your ex's fault. Boy, we love to blame exes. My goodness, we love to blame exes. It's not your ex's fault. They may have done something to you, but the fact that you're still stuck 10 years behind, it's not their fault. It's not even the devil's fault. That's the number one way. That's the number one we want to blame, right? Like, I'm stuck because the devil's got me stuck. We even spiritualize it like, oh, the devil just knows that I'm going to take him out, so he's keeping me stuck. Well, how are you ever going to take him out if he can keep you stuck? If he's strong enough to keep you stuck in that bitterness or that situation for all these years, I think he's got you beat. It's not always the devil. It's a pet peeve of mine. Whew. I know I'm a pastor of a church, but I'm telling you, it's not always the devil. It's not always the devil. Sometimes, yes. It's not always. It's not always. If you chose to go into the relationship, even though God told you not to, and it ended poorly in less than a year, that ain't the devil. That's God was like, hello. And you were like, yeah, but they look good. But what you don't realize is they may look good then, but then one day they're going to look like me. Hair starts falling out. Can't gain weight. It's just like a thing. Like, you don't know. This is why we have to make sure that we're not going by what we know or what we want, but we're saying, God, what do you want? I'm making the decision, God, now not to follow what I want, but I'm making the decision to follow what you want, to follow the decision of what you have for my life. Isaac told him, he said, Esau, when you decide, you will break free. When you decide, only you can decide. Somebody say me. Now somebody say, it's up to me. Only you can decide. And I wonder, is anybody in this place wanting to make a decision? I'm done with this mess. I'm done in this circumstance. I'm done in this situation. I am making a decision to move past it, to move beyond it. I'm not staying stuck here for forever. And you know what? I love this. Esau made the decision. Esau made the decision. We don't talk about this part of Esau's life a whole lot. We like to talk about the bad part. We like to talk about the part where he gave away his birthright for a bowl of stew. We don't talk about this part a whole lot. But Esau made the decision. He made the decision to say, you know what? I missed out on that. I made the wrong choice there, but I'm moving on now. He made the decision. He listened to his father. And the way I know he listened to his father is because this is not the last time that we see him. We see him again in Genesis chapter number 33. We see Esau again in Genesis 33, only this time, he's not sitting there stuck. He's not bitter. He's not frustrated. He's actually doing quite well. In verse 33, in Genesis 33 and verse 1, we see that he didn't get the blessing, but he was still blessed. It says, then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. Esau doesn't have 400 men if he's still stuck crying about what happened. Esau doesn't have 400 men if he's still bitter about what took place. Esau doesn't have 400 men if he's still stuck in a terrible situation. But it says he saw 400 men, so he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead, and as he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Jacob is nervous. He's a little freaked out. Because even though he got the birthright, his brother is still done very well for himself, is still in a great place, has still been blessed in his life. He bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him. A lot of us are like, you know what, if I'd have been Esau, I'd have embraced him in a different way, with my fist, right? Because this is their first encounter. After it happened, this is the first moment that they're able to see each other. Esau, he's healed up. Things are good now. And he could have taken it all. He could have absolutely obliterated Jacob. But instead it says he embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. They both wept. The last thing I need you to write down today is find freedom through the embrace. Find freedom through the embrace. It says Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck. Watch this. When you can embrace the thing that hurt you, when you can embrace the thing that disappointed you, when you can embrace the thing that betrayed you, it is a good indication that the yoke is not around your neck anymore. When you can embrace that thing, it is a good indication. The way that we know that Esau was able to experience freedom is because he was willing to embrace it. He was willing to embrace the very one that hurt him. Because if you cannot embrace it, then you have not conquered it. If you can't embrace it, then you have not overcome it. And I believe God is telling some people this morning, it is time to stop fussing. It is time to stop crying, to stop complaining, and to embrace the thing that hurt you. To embrace the thing that disappointed you, to embrace that thing that betrayed you. It's time to stop talking about what could have been or what should have been or how they took it from you, and to embrace it and say, listen, I know that this happened, but I moved past it. I got too restless to stay stuck there. I got too restless to be held back there. The reason you can't move forward is because you're stuck in the back. You're stuck back in the opposition. You're stuck back in the disappointment and the betrayal. But we got to be willing to say, you know what? I'm going to embrace this thing. I'm going to acknowledge that it happened. But I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to gripe about it. I'm not going to say that they're holding me back. I'm making the decision, nobody and no thing is going to hold me back. And the moment that you are willing to embrace it is the moment that you can receive the freedom. The moment that you're willing to say, you know what? This thing has held too much power over my life for far too long. And I know that God is not limited. I know he's not limited to the thing I missed out on. I know he's not limited to what I feel like was stolen from me. I know he's not limited to those things. So I'm going to embrace it so that I can move past it. I'm going to embrace it so that I can experience the freedom that only he can bring.